Hey everyone, it's Tony. If you remember back in the Saturn versus Dreamcast episode, at the end I actually mentioned something about region unlocking. Well, I sat there and thought about it, and you know what? Maybe we should talk about some of the various methods there are to unlocking games. Because there are some that I actually like, and there are some that I don't like. So, these are being ranked, in my opinion, from the worst to the best. These are various methods you could use to unlock your system. The switching disks method. Honestly, I don't actually recommend this one for the most part. The only reason I'm actually talking about it is just because I know it's usually a main method a lot of people use, especially with disc-based consoles. There are a few issues with this, though. For one, your system could actually brick if done improperly, and two, this is just very time consuming. And when I mean time consuming, I mean you literally have to pay attention to the speed of the disc being rotated. Um, there's a lot of videos out there that explain this method a lot better than how I'm explaining it. But honestly, like I said, this is a method I just don't really recommend unless you absolutely want to do it. Importing the console. Yeah, this is a method that's actually pretty expensive, but is also worth it sometimes. Either based on design or just based on technology built within the machine. I'm also going to include reproduction carts and third party consoles like Retrons or Retro Twins in this category. But basically, if you were to just buy the console based on region, or if you were to just get a reproduction cart or a reproduction console, that works just as well. Sometimes these reproduction consoles just don't have the lockout chip, or they won't include any of the methods that mostly get used to lock out the region. My Retron 3 was a perfect example that did not have a region lockout for the Super Nintendo. But again, this is just a simple method. It is really pricey though, because most consoles, especially being imported, could range anywhere in the price of $100 to maybe $600. So always kind of look at places like Amazon or eBay if you're going to do this method. Or, as I usually do, also look into importing websites like JapanGameStock.com or PlayAsia. They'll usually have a good deal on these consoles. But, yeah, again, it's a little pricey, but this is one I actually do recommend under certain cases. Cheat discs and cartridges. I'm mainly going to be focusing on Action Replay and Game Shark for this because honestly, they're the two major brands, and most of their products are fairly cheap. But along with that, their software programming somehow finds a way to disable the lockout chip, which actually is one of the reasons that there is a region lock to begin with, surprisingly enough. But yeah, I personally recommend this method, especially if it's a disc-based console like a PlayStation, Wii U, Wii, GameCube, or anything of that matter. So, yeah, cheat discs and cartridges. System mods. I'm mainly pointing this one out towards the N64 and the Super Nintendo. Now, I actually really do recommend this, but I am also very cautious of this, because any wrong move to the modification could potentially destroy your cartridge tray. Now, as you've probably known at this point, or if you haven't, the N64 and Super Nintendo are technically region free. The only thing that holds them back is there are 2 pins in the cartridge tray. Once you take out those 2 pins, you're basically free to play any game you want. Now, doing this method is also very time consuming. For example, when I modded my N64, it took me about a half hour just to get the pins out. and even then putting it back together took about another 10-15 minutes, just trying to make sure everything didn't fall out. But this is a method I really do recommend. You just kind of have to have steady hands and have to be very, very patient with your process. So, Nintendo modding. Do it. It's cheap. It's easy. The only thing you have to be worried about is the cartridge tray. Region-free consoles. Now, to start off with, I do know that a lot of people are aware that the Nintendo Switch and the PlayStation 3 are technically region-free, but there are a few more that a lot of people don't necessarily know about. These include the Sega Genesis following the Model 3 onward, as well as the Game Boy and the DS line. On top of that, there are a few accessories for other systems that are also region-free. For example, the Super Nintendo has the Super Game Boy, that's region-free, and the GameCube has the Game Boy Player, which is also region-free. So, if you ever do come across any of these accessories, understand that these are completely region-free, and you could then import any Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, or Game Boy Color game you would want. And with the DS, it's mainly the same. You could import any DS game from any region you would want. The only exception to that would be the IQ games, as well as certain games that came from Japan. And there are some of the methods you could use to make your system region-free, at least the ones that I would rank from the worst to the best. Now, if you excuse me, I think I'm going to go off and watch some TV. I don't really want to talk about games. So, this is Tony. I'm signing out. I'll see you guys next time.
さっささっさと飛び出せ飛び出せ飛び出せドラえもんできないことなど何にも何にも何にもないぞのび太負けるな助けに行くぞヒゲが張り切りピンとな